Believe it or not, y'all, Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan spent his entire career building a reputation as the quiet star who let his game speak for itself. He avoided trash talk, rarely showed emotion, and kept rivalries out of the spotlight. But even Duncan had moments when opponents pushed him in ways he never forgot. Now, at 49, he has finally revealed the names of the players who tested his patience the most, offering a rare glimpse into the battles that bothered him more than he ever admitted. The player Tim Duncan admitted he definitely disliked the most was Kevin Garnett.
He never got out his element one time.
Might laugh at
Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett had a truly complicated relationship. Garnett was one of the first teenagers to jump straight from high school to the NBA, while Duncan entered the league as a grown man with 4 years of college experience. Almost immediately, the two became the faces of a new generation of power forwards, but with very different styles. Garnett played with intensity, versatility, and relentless energy, while Duncan set the standard for fundamentals, patience, and team-first basketball. From the moment their careers overlapped, they were on a collision course. Their personalities couldn't have been more different. Garnett thrived on emotion and noise, constantly trash-talking, playing aggressive defense, and creating a manic presence that demanded attention. Duncan, on the other hand, carried himself with calm efficiency, rarely spoke, never taunted, and dismantled opponents quietly with precise footwork, bank shots, and rim protection. This contrast made them natural foils, and the media framed Garnett as the fiery, emotional leader and Duncan as the quiet assassin. Every matchup between them carried that narrative, and the tension only grew as their reputations developed. Off the court, Duncan stayed low-key, while Garnett's psychological warfare became infamous. Stories even surfaced about Garnett allegedly crossing the line on Mother's Day, supposedly referencing Duncan's late mother in trash talk. While this comment was never confirmed, the rumor stuck and added fuel to the sense that their rivalry was more than just on-court competition. Over the years, they clashed repeatedly in the Western Conference spotlight. From Spurs versus Timberwolves in the late 1990s and early 2000s to Spurs versus Celtics when both were veterans. Garnett brought constant pressure, talking and playing aggressively to try to crack Duncan's stoic composure. Duncan ignored the noise, responding with efficiency. Soft touch off the glass, perfect positioning in the post, and key rim protection. In playoff series, the difference was clear. Despite Garnett putting up impressive individual numbers, Duncan and the Spurs always had the edge, advancing deeper into the postseason in 1999 and again in 2001. Garnett later admitted he tried to break Duncan's silence to provoke a reaction but never succeeded. Duncan himself described Garnett as one of the toughest and most exhausting opponents he faced, because the chatter never stopped. Their rivalry lasted over a decade, and while Duncan ultimately had the advantage in championships and team success, he didn't hate Garnett personally. He hated facing him on the court. It was mentally draining, a constant battle against a player who never let up. Many in the league consider the Duncan-Garnett rivalry one of the defining clashes at the power forward position. When they retired, the tone shifted. Garnett entered the Hall of Fame in 2020, followed by Duncan in 2021, and both speeches reflected mutual respect. Yet the lore of their rivalry remains, especially the infamous Mother's Day story, confirmed or not, symbolizing Garnett as the opponent who always pushed, always talked, and always forced Duncan to stay locked in. That relentless challenge is why Duncan counted Garnett among the players he hated facing the most. Surprisingly, it seems Duncan didn't feel the same way about Michael Jordan as many of his contemporaries did.
Gamble, Duncan, Michael Jordan the block.
When Tim Duncan entered the NBA in 1997, Michael Jordan was already at the height of his dominance. With 6 championships under his belt and a reputation that extended far beyond the court, Jordan's presence defined the league. For a rookie like Duncan, adjusting to the NBA meant more than learning the game. It meant competing in an environment still shaped by Jordan's influence. Their careers overlapped briefly during Jordan's final season with the Chicago Bulls and again when he returned with the Washington Wizards from 2001 to 2003. Even with such limited overlap, Jordan's impact on Duncan's generation was undeniable. What made Jordan such a challenge wasn't just his scoring or defensive ability. It was his presence and psychological approach. He constantly talked, applied pressure through words, and created doubt in players who weren't prepared for it. Duncan, known for his quiet, focused demeanor, disliked that side of the game. In one of their early meetings in 1998, Duncan put up strong numbers, even as the Spurs lost. Reports suggest Jordan deliberately tested him that night, using both his play and words to see if the rookie would crack. When Jordan returned with Washington, Duncan had already reached his prime, posting MVP-level numbers and leading the Spurs as one of the league's best. Jordan, older but still dangerous, relied on the same mental tactics, trying to pull Duncan into battles he didn't want. Their matchups were never about a rivalry in the standings, but about mutual respect across different stages of greatness. Duncan later admitted that Jordan was one of the toughest opponents because he never stopped attempting to get inside his head. For a player who built his legacy on composure, that mental challenge was draining. While their numbers rarely overlapped directly, Duncan controlling the paint and Jordan dominating the perimeter, the small moments defined their encounters. Teammates recalled Jordan making comments about Duncan being too quiet or too nice to dominate, little jabs that irritated him but didn't alter his play. In 1998, Duncan scored 19 points against the Bulls, and Jordan later acknowledged his talent when the Wizards faced the Spurs, with Duncan putting up 23 to 25 points and 12 rebounds a night, while Jordan, even in his late 30s, averaged around 20. The significance of these matchups wasn't just in the stats, it was in how Jordan constantly went after Duncan mentally, testing the rookie's focus and resilience.
Blocked by Duncan.
Duncan later explained that Jordan was one of the players he truly hated facing, not out of personal dislike, but because of the mental effort required to block out the constant noise. Jordan's trash talk wasn't random. It was calculated to create doubt and test his opponents. Duncan admitted that Jordan was one of the few players who could genuinely make him uncomfortable on the court, and that impact stayed with him throughout his career. In retirement, however, the tone shifted to respect. Jordan praised Duncan as the best fundamental player he had ever seen, and Duncan returned that respect by acknowledging Jordan as the measuring stick of his era. For those who have followed the NBA over the last decade, it won't be a surprise that DeMarcus Cousins also made the list of players Duncan found most challenging.
Frustrated playing against Tim Duncan because I could not figure him out.
By the early 2010s, Tim Duncan was firmly established as the face of the Spurs, while a new generation of big men was trying to make their mark. One of the most outspoken was DeMarcus Cousins, a player with a skill to score both inside and out, but also a fiery temper that made him stand out as much as his talent. Where Duncan remained quiet and let his game speak for itself, Cousins leaned into trash talk, arguing with referees and asserting his presence against opponents. That difference in approach set the stage for a natural clash. During games against San Antonio, Cousins often barked at Duncan, showing little hesitation in challenging a veteran with 4 championships. The tension wasn't limited to the court. In 2012, things escalated when Spurs commentator Sean Elliott, a close friend of Duncan from his early years, called Cousins out for showing disrespect toward Duncan during a game. Cousins allegedly confronted Elliott afterward, leading to a league suspension. The incident made headlines, not because of Cousins' play, but because in San Antonio, any perceived disrespect toward Duncan was seen as crossing a line. That moment cemented Cousins' place in Spurs history in a way no other young big man had at the time. On the floor, Cousins was a difficult matchup even for Duncan, who used his size, agility, and fundamentals to defend. Cousins could step out and hit jumpers, put the ball on the floor, and muscle his way inside, while Duncan relied on precise bank shot positioning and rim protection. Cousins thrived on making his presence known when scoring, while Duncan maintained a measured, silent approach. The Elliott incident only highlighted the tension between them, with reports claiming Cousins mocked Duncan during possessions. Elliott publicly criticized the behavior, and the league's suspension underscored how seriously such actions were taken.
I couldn't figure him out, and it was just like, no matter how much.
In terms of results, Duncan usually had the upper hand because San Antonio was a championship-caliber team, while Sacramento struggled through constant rebuilds. Individually, however, Cousins consistently put up strong numbers, averaging nearly 20 points and 10 rebounds during their overlapping years, proving he could produce against anyone, even the Spurs' defensive anchor. For Duncan, the issue wasn't just Cousins' skill. It was his attitude, the arguing, the constant chatter, the very traits Duncan despised in opponents as they disrupted the calm rhythm he thrived on. The impact of those encounters lingered. Cousins earned a league-wide reputation as a volatile star, and his altercation with Spurs personnel tied him forever to the narrative of disrespecting Duncan in San Antonio. While Duncan never made a public fuss about it, Spurs media often cited Cousins as one of the players he genuinely disliked facing. After Duncan retired, Cousins softened in his tone, speaking more respectfully about legends like Tim, but the reputation remained. On Duncan's most hated list, Cousins isn't there because of playoff battles or championship stakes. He's there because he embodied everything Duncan sought to avoid in the game: a fiery personality, brash style, and willingness to cross lines of respect. Even without a deep postseason history against him, Cousins earned his spot on that list with one unforgettable controversy. Duncan also didn't appreciate the antics of Draymond Green. Green began his career with Golden State in a small bench role, but within a few seasons, he became the team's heartbeat, helping build a dynasty. What set him apart wasn't just scoring, it was the energy he brought to defense and the way he involved himself in every battle. Green's versatility allowed him to guard both centers and guards in the same possession, and he talked constantly, addressing referees, motivating teammates, or directly targeting the player across from him.
That's what he wanted. He wanted to get